Hello and welcome to the Passion Driven Pioneers interview series. I'm your host, John Channon, and today I'm joined by Steve Perry, who is the founder of the Well Recruiting Solutions. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, John.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to our discussion. I haven't had anybody in your industry on the show before, so this should be really fun. So could you kick us off with a brief background as to who you are, what you do, and the business that you're in?
Yeah, absolutely. I founded the Well Recruiting Solutions in late 2023. I've always kind of been an entrepreneur though. Growing up, my first company was asphalt maintenance. I did driveway seal coating and crack sealing, and did that to pay my way through high school and college. And then my senior year of college, when I was 20, I became a financial advisor with New York Life Insurance Company. I did that for 5 years and then was promoted to a leadership position. So spent 12 years in executive leadership with them all the way through September of 2023 when I really felt like I wanted to get back to my roots and run my own company. Yes, we've been doing that since end of last year.
So, what kind of inspired you to get into the recruiting industry? And in particular, I think you do recruiting for financial services, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah, a big part of running financial firms, which was my background. So I was a managing partner. I ran firms of 100 plus financial advisors. Big part of that is recruiting. In the financial services industry, the typical or the average financial advisor is getting older and older every single year, and they're not being backfilled with the next generation. Combine that with who's got the money, right? The insurance companies, the finance institutions, and so they need to continue to bring talent into their organization. It's harder than it's ever been. The people they have internally doing it have less experience than ever doing it, and so there's really a bigger budget and need than ever to backfill and bring new advisors in. That was something that as I left my corporate position, looked at as, what's something that's going to be recession proof? What's something that is going to be in demand? What's something that has recurring revenue that can be systematized? And ultimately, that's why we felt called to start this business.
That's great. So let's peel back the onion for the audience a little bit. What types of people are you looking to recruit, right? What does a person who's interested in the financial services business look like?
Yeah, it's really an interesting space because although we're recruiting people to come into large household names, Fortune 500 companies, the opportunity to be an advisor is really an entrepreneurial model and such. I get to talk to would-be advisors all day long, or we get to recruit and have interviews with. But also, the support and the backing and the structure that comes with being aligned with a Fortune 500 institution. The majority of the people that we're having conversations with are what we would call career changers. So people who, are a good 5 to 20 years into their career, where they have been successful, they've climbed the ladder, they've earned good income, they're leading teams. Oftentimes I find sales professionals, sales managers, sales leaders, and then operations professionals. And these are people who are considering doing their own startup, perhaps purchasing a franchise. So we catch them at the right time when they're like, I'm done climbing the corporate ladder. I'd like to do something, maybe not be a full-blown startup, but something, more entrepreneurial. And so it tends to be a really good fit for them.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, just in case anybody who listens to the podcast is going to be interested in financial services. They now know what to expect a little bit or
Yeah.
what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about, you mentioned you've been a bit of a serial entrepreneur, always interested in entrepreneurism. You know, you're starting up this business and getting it up and getting it going. Did you have anything as you were getting started that maybe you didn't expect at the beginning?
Yes, obviously, yes, definitely. Um, there's a lot of things. Um, so when I knew about a year ago that I wanted to leave that corporate position, and so I actually thought I was going to purchase a business and be an acquisitional entrepreneur. And so I took all the steps to do that. And at the last minute, the deal fell through. Well, in the meantime, I had told my company that I was working at, hey, probably not going to be here at the end of the year. And they said, you know what, why don't we part ways now? And in the meantime, that deal fell through. So right off the bat, it was like, okay, well, this isn't going as planned, but I have a very strong faith. And so I know when things don't ever make sense, like I know that that's absolutely part of God's plan for that next stage of my life. So I really leaned into that. A lot of time of prayer and fasting, and like every week I'd be like, all right, Lord, what business model do you want me to investigate this week? So I'd go network and talk to people in that. I'd by the end of the week put a business proposal together, pray on that, talk to some mentors, and then I would know next Monday whether or not that was it. And then if it wasn't, obviously it wasn't in a lot of cases, so I went to the next one, went to the next one. Um, and after about 6 weeks, I figured out, hey, this is what's going to make sense. I talked to a lot of people who were leaders in the industry, former colleagues of mine, did a lot of market research, and then built what I thought would be the ultimate product. I built a Cadillac solution, and I went and sold it to a couple people, a couple former colleagues, and then went to work delivering that product, and it was great. And then came time to start hiring the first people for my team because in that business, there's nothing, candidly, John, I left about a $900,000 a year job. So there's no amount of production that I'm going to be able to do that's going to create that kind of revenue. I have to do it through building a team and multiplying myself over and over and over again. So I hired my first, few people for the team to replicate, and we went and sold what we did, and then sold some more and grew the team some more. And after the first quarter, I realized that all of the assumptions that I had made when I first delivered the product to the first client, it was going to cost me about 7 times what the original projections had been. And so naturally, I built buffer in, I built margin in, but I did not build that much buffer or margin in. And so then I had to go unsell all of my clients and figure out a new product that we could deliver that they'd still be happy with, and that I was confident that we could deliver. So 3 months into the business, I had to basically cut off, we built some nice recurring revenue. I had to cancel all that, refund all of my clients. I had, I think 17 people on payroll at that point in time, and then create a brand new product, train everyone on it, and get that up and running. And so, fortunately, we've been able to do that. We've been able to hire some additional amazing team members. But there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to leading and producing through people versus just being a solopreneur. And that was really one of the first big shocks and stressors in our company.
Yeah, that sounds like, obviously creating a different business model on the fly in an industry that you were familiar with, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
So talk about how you decided on this business model, and what was that decision like having to get out of the former business model,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So, one of the things that, we hear all the time, right, is begin with the end in mind.
Hmm.
So, I wanted to create a business that I knew would be sellable. Like I said, kind of a serial entrepreneur. And when I go all the way back to high school, when I had that asphalt maintenance company, right? When the time came to transition out of that, I just closed the doors. I didn't realize like you can sell, like I mean I had several hundred recurring customers. I could have sold that. I never knew that. And then fast forward to last summer when I was looking to buy someone else's business. Again, I got to look at all of the things that went into deciding whether to buy that business. And so, that gentleman was, in his mid 60s, and I'm 38. And I was like, well, how could I get that experience, in my early 40s. And so that really drove a lot of the design as to what kind of company do I want to start. So, it had to be something that had recurring revenue, because I know you're going to get a higher sale multiple on that. It had to be something that I could hire a leadership team and remove myself from the business. Again, you need that for higher multiples. It had to be something that had growth trajectory, because again, a buyer's going to want to have growth potential. It had to be scalable to where we could be doing 8 figures in profit, so that big enough firms would be interested in buying that. And so those are all the things that kind of went into consideration. And then layer over the top, what have I spent a lot of my time doing that is going to shorten the time span of what I need to learn to become a subject matter expert. And so that was really what drove a lot of the decision making.
That was great. That was a good description there. And it's a lot of what I tell my people, if you want to be in a position to sell your business, I tell them those 5 points that you just kind of pointed out to us. So thank you for that. That was good. So so you already gave us an example of being adaptable and innovative in your space, and having to pivot at the beginning.
Mhm.
How about maybe talk a little bit about some of your future plans and goals that you might have for your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a couple things that we're looking forward to. So, like as I mentioned, this last quarter, again, we're a 6-month-old company. It's amazing how much we can get done in a week, and in a month is like an eternity. So, we just went through a migration from our original CRM and operating process to a new one that's going to allow us to scale a lot more. I did bring on a partner who's our chief operating officer. That's his expertise. So he's gotten us to the point where now we can go and we can start selling, and we can go from, I think we've served probably about 20 clients thus far. Our goal is to get to 35 by the end of this quarter, and 60 by the end of the year. We're looking to add a complementary product. So, as you're having conversations with clients and just talking to them about their needs, they tell you what else they need to grow. And so we've got in the development pipeline some lead generation products where, again, we're helping firms bring talent in, but then as they have that talent, they need leads to help that talent continue to do business development. And so, we'd like to be truly a solution for both talent and business development for clients. So we can capture some of the most important aspects of their budget, and allow them to continue to grow. And as they grow, then what they're able to pay us to help them continue to grow continues to grow. And so we can grow organically by or horizontally by having more clients, and vertically helping them more and more with more solutions.
That's good. So 5 years from now,
Mhm.
right? What does your company look like? What does it feel like?
Yeah. So 5 years from now, the goal would be that, certainly sooner than this, but I'm not in the company anymore. I've hired a president to run the company. We have 1,000 clients. That's actually by 2030. We want to be the firm of choice for financial advisory firms to help them with their lead generation and their talent. And candidly, we'd like to be doing $10 million a month in revenue. Pushing a 9-figure valuation, and being in a position to decide, do we sell the company, or do we use this to fund future endeavors and grow from there?
That's great. Yeah, a lot of business owners, don't necessarily think about how they need to set that company up so that it can run without them.
Mhm.
And I'm glad you brought that up, and then I'm glad you shared with us your 5-year plan as well.
That was kind of one of the thoughts that I had, like coming in, is like my job, as soon as I see myself doing something, my job is to find someone else to do that. And whether that's someone else on the team, and teach and coach and lead them to do that, or it's bring someone else, because I have to continually be elevating to get back to the point where we're driving enough revenue. We have to have a team of a certain size.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you my little magic wand question. So
Yeah.
humor me on this one a little bit. So if you could wave a magic wand, right, and change one thing about your business, what would that be?
Um, I'm reading a book right now. Geez, from 1x to 10x. I'm not
Yeah, 10x
to,
ideas.
yeah, yeah. Um, and so I've really been pondering that, how do I not do 1x, 2x growth, but go to 10x. And so we've had the privilege of having some conversations with enterprise agreements versus working with the local branch, which our bread and butter is working with the local branch of large companies and helping them at that local level, which I love because those are all my colleagues and former peers. But they're writing checks out of their own checkbook, and so it's a lot more. It's exciting to have conversations with the home offices of large companies that have a problem that they need to get fixed tomorrow, and money isn't an object at this point. So I would say um, moving into a position where the majority of my sales conversations are enterprise conversations versus the local level conversations.
Cool. Yeah, I had somebody on the show talk about build your business with 10x ideas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's great. So knowing that this show, right, this show's targeted towards people that are going to be in their first few years worth of business. Do you have any final thoughts or words of advice you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I would say a couple things that have been helpful. No, number one, I talked about selling the business in the future, right? That so talking beginning with the end in mind, and really realizing like what would I do? Let's say I got that check for $100 million. What would change in my life? What would look differently? What would I do with that money? And a couple things I've really realized is one, not a whole lot. Like not not a whole lot. I would still want to have a business that I was involved in where I got to lead and love on people. Family is one of our company values. Generosity is one of our company values. And you don't all of a sudden create a family culture if you have a lot more money. You don't all of a sudden get generous when you have a lot more money. It just expands what you already were doing. And so that's really helped me enjoy the journey along the way. I've talked to a lot of people who have said like the fun years were during the struggle. They weren't when that amount hit your bank check or your bank account. And so realize like thinking really deeply, not just about where you want to be, but then what would life look like then, and then applying that now. One of the things that my wife and I have decided on, and this probably go against a lot of startup advice. We downsized our life significantly, sold the lake home, sold the Maserati, living in a rental, all of those things, which if you haven't done that, I think it's super important that you really look at how much you can downsize your life on things like that, because it doesn't matter. I've learned how little people care, about how much I think they care about things. And what that really allows you to do is it allows you to invest in human capital, people, which then buys you your time back. It buys you your time to be able to think and create vision for your company. But then a counterpart to that, a decision my wife and I have made is that we're still not going to say no to opportunities. So whether that's, trip, like I just got back from a week-long trip with my dad and uncle to northern Canada. My dad and uncle are not getting any younger. Family reunions, vacations, all of these things. And here's the philosophy that we looked at with that, right? So what's that going to cost? 2 grand, 3 grand, 5 grand, 8 grand. Okay. Um, when I die, whatever that age is, 80 years old, like I'm a business person. In my mind, I'm going to have been successful at some point in business. I'm going to have money in my accounts, whether it's $1 million or $100 million. Is that extra three, four, five, $8,000 that's going to go to my grandkids then more valuable then, or is it more valuable now when my daughters are 7 and 9 years old and we're making memories together? And my wife, who is enduring long hours, fluctuate, no paychecks for the last 11 months, right? It like are those things more valuable now or an extra $7,000 in the future? And it's just a no-brainer for us. So I would say in some things we've gotten a lot more frugal as a startup. And other things we've actually become more loose and more focused on creating memories, creating events with our kids, investing in time with them, because I don't ever know that I'm going to get it back.
Yeah. Nobody's going to remember what you did from a job perspective. People are going to remember what you did with them, for them, how you made them feel. And that's really good. So listen, I appreciate that. So thank you so much for your time today, Steve.
Yeah, you bet, John.
It was great meeting you, learning more about your journey. And to everyone watching, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.